Come on. Okay. We have to be careful. The twins, they took off with Rush, but a lot of the highwaymen, they stuck around. Okay, we have to get back to Hope County. My mom, she'll know what to do.
Another year, another Far Cry title. This isn't a bad thing though. New Dawn is yet another great entry in the long-running open-world shooter series. Far Cry New Dawn's design is largely based on last year's Far Cry 5, but it also adds its own flavor of bright colors and neon to an already engaging and emergent gameplay system. To begin with, the game continues using the Dunya engine to deliver some great-looking vistas and render a massive map, which, by the way, is a modified version of the one that we saw from Far Cry 5. New Dawn features the same post-processing effects that we saw in its predecessor, thereby giving the game a pretty soft look. Regardless of the platform, Far Cry New Dawn makes smart use of temporal anti-aliasing, thereby resulting in a superb image quality. This results with a rendered image which basically has next to no jaggies.
We weren't their only victims, but my mom managed to bring survivors together and we all tried to build a place where we'd be safe.
Far Cry games have always excelled in rendering intricate details throughout its world map, and this trend continues in New Dawn. The lighting tech was already at the top of its game in Far Cry 5, and it's great to see the solution in action all over again in New Dawn. Moving through locations with the rich, densely rendered foliage is a sight to behold. The texture work on the trees is impeccable, and seeing the sun rays getting scattered through the leaves is pretty satisfying. This is all due to the complex material shaders in action. Whether it's the surrounding architecture, the dense foliage, or pathways, Far Cry 5 delivers a high level of detail across all three major platforms. As far as cutscenes go, Far Cry New Dawn utilizes the same rendering tech that its predecessors used. The cutscenes are running in real time, but they feature enhanced post-processing and depth of field, thereby giving it a more cinematic look. Alpha effects are decent, whereas more physics-based effects like explosions look pretty amazing. Water effects are still a bit of a mixed bag though. For example, water doesn't splash when the player drives a vehicle over it. But overall, the water effects are not up to modern standards in Far Cry games. And this is intriguing, because this is the same company that developed the likes of Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which had spectacular water effects. However, volumetric effects like wind causing random dust displacement and smoke coming out of destroyed objects have all been implemented pretty well. So overall, Far Cry New Dawn seems like a natural continuation of Far Cry 5 in terms of the technology involved. So now let's tackle the elephant in the room. How does the game perform on the PC, PS4 Pro, and Xbox One X? So let's take a look at the PC version. The developers recommended an Intel Core i7-4970 at 3.6 GHz, or an AMD Ryzen 5 1600 at 3.2 GHz, 8 GB of memory, and an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970 or AMD Radeon R9 290X or better. Our test build includes a GTX 1080 Ti, 16 GB of GDDR4 memory, and a Ryzen 1700 CPU. On the graphical options front, it's great to see the developer continuing the vast array of options that we saw in Far Cry 5. These include the likes of texture filtering, shadows, geometry, environment, water, terrain, volumetric fog, anti-aliasing, and motion blur, along with the ability to lock your frame rate, field of view, and resolution scale. You can also enable adaptive resolution that will improve your performance, but it will dynamically change the resolution so as to maintain the desired frame rate. The ability to lock the frame rate is an interesting parameter, but we're not sure whether it works as intended. Furthermore, the UI does a great job of showcasing what each option does, the effect that it can have on the visuals, and the amount of GPU memory that it needs. The game also comes packed with an in-game benchmark tool which will help you gauge expected performance parameters based on the hardware that you have. On the performance front, the game ran fine with every setting maxed out. There were no noticeable frame rate drops, and the visual quality was always a class above its console counterparts. So when we take a look at the PS4 Pro and Xbox One versions, as mentioned before, Far Cry New Dawn is largely based on Far Cry 5, so the performance parameters are largely similar for both games. The Xbox One X takes the lead with better resolution compared to the PS4 Pro, which immediately gives it an advantage as far as image quality is concerned. The frame rate is capped at 30 frames per second for both platforms, and Far Cry New Dawn manages to stick at that target pretty consistently. However, both console versions suffer from some inconsistencies. First up is the pop-in issue for nearby objects. It's quite distracting to see in-game objects like foliage pop up all of a sudden. Secondly, compared to the PC build, texture filtering on surfaces is pretty mediocre. You won't notice this when you're traveling in a vehicle, but it's pretty apparent when compared side by side against the PC build. In conclusion, Far Cry New Dawn successfully manages to retain all of the tech that we saw in Far Cry 5, but it doesn't necessarily build on anything noticeable. As far as the question of the best version is concerned, well, that's an easy pick for us. The PC version easily trumps PS4 Pro and Xbox One X due to its vast scalable options. Between the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X versions, Microsoft's console once again takes the lead with a better resolution and image quality. This is not to say that the PS4 Pro version is bad by any means. In the end, Far Cry New Dawn is a commendable effort on all three leading platforms, and a worthy entry in the long-running series.
Through that old mine when I left to get help. There's a workbench inside. You can use it to build a weapon. Rush was supposed to be the final piece so that we could finally fight back. But now, we're worse off than we were. I'm sorry about your people. I promise I'll figure out a way to make this right.
And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily. Also, don't forget to switch on the bell notification icon, that way you don't miss out on any of our videos.